Back with you on the Newsfeed PM, and thanks for staying on. South Africans could be forced to consider alternative burial methods. This as the burial space crisis that continues to worsen around the country is engulfing some of the major metros, such as the city of Johannesburg, Tshwane and Ethekwini. These metros are battling with burial space. Here to help us discuss the crisis and possible solutions, I'm joined by Cyril Mtambo, Azola Manjati, as well as Pieter van Westhuizen, all part of this sector. They are participating in a number of organizations, the Cemeteries and Crematoria Association National Conference that was discussing the future of burial space in the country. Good to have you all, and thank you very much for coming on. Azola, let me begin with you here in the studio. I mean, just reading policies, scanning through them, by and large, bylaws and maybe policies that govern who should establish cemeteries in a given municipality or area. They say municipalities may, from time to time, set aside, acquire or develop any ground for the purpose of establishing a cemetery. It says the municipality must, at all times, ensure that sufficient burial space is available for burial of bodies within a service area. Puts a lot of responsibility on municipalities to do this, which means the municipality should be tracking what is happening as far as what people are doing in burials and respond accordingly. Why have we not done so?
Thank you very much. We, as a city of Johannesburg, we are now running out of space, mainly in West Park Cemetery. We do have alternative burials. It is not true that we are out of space. We still have space for the next 30 to 40 years of burials available. Yeah. However, at West Park, we are going to close it. We are running to full capacity. We're also providing alternative burials such as cremations and above ground burials. And also one of the alternatives that has anchored really well is the reburials. Right. People now have taken and adopted the reburials. We're hoping that in the near future we will see the shift towards cremations, which we already see in percentage-wise that it's a tiny bit year on year that we're going up on cremations within the city of Johannesburg. Yeah. So at all times, we have to ensure that our capacity is enough in terms of cremations. And also on traditional burial grounds, is that the central part of Johannesburg now closing the West Park will mean we're going to Waterfall, Diepsloot, and the southern side at Olifants Flame. Recently, we just opened a small cemetery at Hamburg. Yeah. It was an inactive, passive cemetery for years, and we have opened it now, which will take about 2,000 burials. We take 5 burials there per day, so it's going to last us between 3 and 5 years at the rate that we are burying. We are also looking at other alternatives, which we cannot at the moment say out loud, but there's a lot of work that is happening on the background. And it must be remembered that to develop a cemetery is not something that you decide on a day and it happens tomorrow. Yeah. It's a process that takes up to 5 years.
Yeah, that includes also community engagement, I suppose, participation.
Yes, it includes public participation. It includes the environmental assessment studies, which takes longer. They can take up to a year, and then the construction and the development of the cemetery itself. And one of the challenges with cemeteries is that they are competing with the housing and agriculture and commercial development. So the same soil that is required for housing is the same soil that is required for cemeteries. Yeah. So the city have to be very wary that we're providing for the live ones, or the dead ones also need the
yes. Cyril, what does that mean for yourselves? I mean, that the West Park Cemetery has now reduced itself to 15 interments in a week. Is it a week?
No, per day.
Per day, yeah. 15 interments per day. What does it mean for the business and the work that you're in?
Greetings to you, Thabo, and greetings to Azola that you have at the studio. and to your viewers. Thank you so much, Thabo, for this opportunity to ventilate our views as the South African Cemeteries Association. I think of what has been said now as a preamble on this interview is an indication, or it legitimizes the conversation that one had started a long time ago, that we need now to look into cemetery practices and in a sustainable manner, because even with the municipalities at this point that had enough space at that during maybe in previous years, if the practice was not sustainable, it is now starting to show, because as your guests have correctly put it, that the issue of the burial space shortage remains an issue because of the competition that exists between the living and the dead, where you have to provide the very same piece of land for the housing and agricultural purposes. So I think for us, it is just that proof that the statements of sustainable practices on cemeteries, it is something that we can no longer have a luxury not to discuss it in the open.
Yeah. Pieter, when you have to now go back to your clients and tell them, well, look, the 15 interment limit a day at the West Park Cemetery has now been reached, so you've got to look elsewhere. How do they receive that particular dilemma, and what does it present for your clientele?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult question in the sense that people respond differently to this type of issue that we're dealing with. But just to comment on what one of the speakers said earlier, yes, the land is competing for the living and the dead in terms of interments. And if we're running out of space, we've got a real problem, because culture and belief is driving our behavior. And if your culture or your belief system do not allow you to cremate or acclimate, we're sitting with a problem. And I mean, at this moment in time, we're all very much aware West Park is, cannot deal with the numbers and it's limited. But we believe there are alternatives, and our customers are also looking at private cemeteries, even though it is fairly costly. But I think there's also other needs that's driving that behavior, in the sense that people are concerned about maintenance of cemeteries. I'm not saying all cemeteries are not maintained, but safety and maintenance of cemeteries are a real concern. Yeah. And therefore, they're also looking at private cemeteries, even though it's more costly.
Joburg City Parks and Zoo, I'm still with you, Pieter, I'm making, of course, an appeal to residents. So I think they are speaking directly to residents, but they're also speaking directly to you, funeral directors, to utilize these alternatives. Does that make your job difficult to sell these alternatives for sustainable burial options?
No, I don't think it makes it more difficult. I think, like I said earlier, the issue is your belief system. I mean, if you believe it's not right to cremate or acclimate an individual, you will look for a cemetery to do a burial. And you started the conversation to say there's a responsibility or a legal obligation on municipalities to find land for burial. And I think for a long time, South Africa will still be like that, where people's belief systems are driving their behavior. You're not going to change that overnight. I mean, cremations are there. One of the speakers touched on that. But it's a slow. There's a slow adoption to cremations. You will most probably find that amongst our white clientele, who makes the option of either acclimate or cremate in terms of an acclimation, in terms of sustainable practices. But amongst our other culture groups, it's difficult to convince customers to do something that's totally against the belief system or cultural practices. So you need to respect that. I mean, we as government and as a service providers need to respect that. I mean, it's a sensitive time in your life. Yeah. And if that is wrong, you will not go for it. Definitely not.
Azola, you are offering, at least from what I'm seeing on your website, 4 options: standard first burial, second interment, and third burials, reduction burials, which is new for me. I didn't know that existed, cremations, but I hear Pieter mentioning aquamation as well, which is that an option that you're offering?
Yes, currently we don't have any facilities for aquamations, but we do have facilities for cremations. And then the reduction burials, it's when you open up the grave, you take the remains, put them in a smaller box. Either you dig a little bit deeper to accommodate second and the third burials. Currently, within the city of Johannesburg, we only do third burials at Olifantsvlei because we dig 9 feet there instead of 6 feet. So all other cemeteries, they take up to burials unless the family opted for a reduction burial. And it's not a very difficult thing. However, for reduction burials, the grave must be at least 20 years plus old for it to take place, right. Whereas in the reburials, it's only 12 months, and then the third burial is 18 months.
Right. So if you're looking at those statistics that you're providing there, you're saying you're seeing a rise in the second interment and third interment options.
Yes. Yeah. For example, our Avalon was closed in 2015, and it's a passive cemetery. However, it's still competing with the active sites of burials, like Waterfall comes short of Avalon due to secondary burials at Avalon. People have adopted the secondary burials very well, and they take them seriously. And if you look at the history of Avalon, a lot of our history as South Africa is there at Avalon. So most of us wants to be buried at Avalon rather than anywhere else.
Yeah. What is driving that uptake of the second interment more than the cremation?
We have paid more attention into marketing the secondary interments, and it has been now adopted by all our stakeholders, like funeral undertakers, stonemasons, the public itself has accepted it as a practice. This is what we are seeing now with cremations. It's coming a little bit slower, but it's coming throughout all denominations. We are also intensifying our marketing in terms of cremations, and we're going out there to explain what cremation is all about, to make people understand what it is.
Yeah. So the bigger solution then, Cyril, here, would you say, is more education, by educating the public about these alternatives and maybe having a broader cultural conversation with traditional leaders and other religious groups?
Thabo, what you have just given is exactly the solution that the South African Cemeteries Association is about. Apart from advocating for dignified and sustainable burials in the sector, but SACA is also about the capacity building, which include the training of municipal officials. As we all know that at this point, the mandate for management of cemeteries and crematoria, in terms of the law, it is resting at a local government level. So where we are coming in, we bring this interface where we are bringing the skills and the expertise that one have accumulated and in capacitating the municipal officials, the private sector. Not so long ago, we've had national training in KwaZulu-Natal, where for the first time we've incorporated the officials of the municipalities, but also the funeral industry, where we've had a lot of funeral undertakers that were coming across different provinces. And we were just driving that we need to have these conversations going and this awareness to be out there. The more the voice is amplified, is the more the communities and public will then start to have this, so that all those things that were frowned upon in the past will start now to be brought back to the table for discussions. And I think that will be the only way that we can accelerate of what we are starting to see in terms of the acceptance of these burial alternatives, which is available, which is part of it is cremation. And one must actually comment on the same breath, Thabo, that what we are seeing in Joburg Metro and in other metros like in Cape Town and in Durban as well, as much as the rate of acceptance, it's not the same, but at least we're starting to see the shift where there is no longer a silence on these things, but there is now engagement that are ongoing.
Yeah.
So in answering your question,
these alternatives
yes,
and
awareness,
options, are they offered now throughout all municipalities, or is it just mainly still the metros that are currently offering these alternatives? Because I saw the options on the Joburg City Parks and Zoo website, and I think I saw it on the Tshwane as well as the Western Cape offering these options. I'm not sure about what happens in other municipalities.
look, Thabo, the truth of the matter is, obviously, the metros will be at the forefront of these changes, and then the local and the district municipalities will follow. So municipalities, they are at various levels compared, that is determined by their geographical location, their budget, and the size. But what we are seeing now is that the metros are leading to this, but we are also seeing the emergence of other districts, like here in KwaZulu-Natal, where I am from. There is quite a lot that is happening in the districts. I can also mention my district where I'm coming from. We are seeing quite a lot of municipalities that are under the district where such practices now are starting to show, even though they might not be at a level that we want to, but they are now requests of cremations and also some questions around aquamations as well. So you can see that the discussion is starting to go on communities other than they were before.
All right, let's take a break. We'll continue and wrap up this conversation when we return in a moment. Stay with us here on the Newzroom Afrika. Back with you on the conversation of the sustainable management of the cemetery resources we have in the country and exploring additional ways or options in which certainly this can be achieved. With me in this conversation as Cyril Mtambo, Deputy Chair of the SA Cemeteries Association, Azola Manjati, Head of Cemeteries and Crematoria at the Johannesburg City Park and Zoo, as well as Pieter van Westhuizen. He's a General Manager at AVBOP. Before I come back to you, Pieter, but Azola, I wanted you to mention what you are lobbying for as far as policy change. You made sure that you mentioned this in your statement, letting us of what's happening at the West Park Cemetery, but you're saying you're exploring other options, including lobbying for policy reforms. So what changes do you want to see in policy?
Currently, our bylaw is out for circulation for comments of the public, and we urge public to come and attend the public participation sessions that they can make changes and adopt the changes that they need as public. We put out the bylaw for what is good for cemetery management, but also the public needs to come out and also state their own side of the story so that we not have this bylaw that is legally binding and then the public did not have a voice.
Yeah.
So
what did you put out?
It's a standard bylaw.
Yeah.
Cremations are there, first burials are there, second burials are there. In terms of the alternatives, no one is forced to take the alternatives. It's always the decision of an individual or of the family to take the alternative burial. Our first choice is we provide enough space for traditional burials. Yeah. And then the second one is the reopens. The third one is cremations. Yeah. And we are seeing an uptick in cremations. So we urge public also to look at these alternatives and act upon them, and also the issue of safety and vandalism in our cemeteries. Okay. Cemeteries were designed without the thought of safety and vandal-proof practices, but now we are seeing an increase in vandalism. So we also urge public to work with us in terms of securing our cemeteries and be vigilant in our cemeteries. Like in all our cemeteries in Johannesburg, we say it's better to visit from 8 o'clock right up to 4 o'clock when there are so many people in the cemeteries. Yeah. But then after hours, as much as it is not allowed to visit, but we know there are cultural practices that the public would want to go at dawn or at dusk, we do allow that on a request, but we urge people to not to come on our graveyard after hours, but also safety is a major concern for us, for the public, that we need to work all of us together to ensure that we have safe cemetery spaces.
Now, you cite 5 things that are a contributing factor to, of course, the scarcity of cemetery resources. 1, increasing populations, of course. There's an increase in internal and external migration, you say, relatively high death rates, limited financial resources, and limited land for cemeteries. Are these factors not factors that can be adjusted through policy?
Yes, the city is looking, there's a bigger policy than our own bylaws of cemetery management that deals with the cemetery cemetery space availability. It must be remembered that the cemetery burials are the core service delivery of the municipality. We cannot go without them. So resources are being channeled into that direction, into finding land, into developing the land. As I said before, that we are doing a lot behind the scenes. Then when we are ready or the final product is there, we will announce what we have done. But currently, we still have enough space to push us for the next 30 to 40 years. But within the cemetery space, you know that once you are on year 15, you still have a remaining interment space of 15 years. But now then the markets are starting going to be clutched together, and the traffic is going to be a nightmare. So we need to be very proactive in that regard, ensure that we develop cemeteries in advance.
Yeah. Pieter, are you engaged with that policy making process at all?
Not at this moment in time, no. So yeah, I think it's important to take note of the changes. I might just want to comment on the drive to cremations. And I think there's a similar challenge that we also, South Africa has limited crematoriums, and it's also very difficult to set up a crematorium. So while
what makes it difficult?
Zoning, the zoning of the land, emission licenses, the Department of Environmental Affairs, the responsibility towards them. So there's a number of gears that needs to work together for us to set up crematoria. And then obviously it's expensive to run it as a private company or private individual. So I think, if we look at the planning regarding burial space, hand in hand we must plan for the alternatives. And if you followed the news the past year, there were many times where newspapers reported issues in Cape Town, for example, with crematoria not operating at capacity. There's issues, people waited weeks for the service to be rendered. And from that point of view, I mean, if you move away from burial space, you must make sure that you've got sufficient capacity on the cremation side to fulfill the demand that will be coming down the line. I think, like the gentleman said, in terms of planning, this is something that maybe in partnership between the private sector and government, something that we need to look at, because there's a real concern with us that there's not sufficient crematoria available to fulfill the demand that's coming.
Yeah. Cyril, I mean, what do you make of that bureaucratic limitation that is affecting crematoriums at this particular point? You think there's something that needs to be engaged in policy, certainly, to make the red tape less?
Thank you so much, Thabo. I think, as I was just listening to my colleagues as they were articulating on this point, one actually cannot run away from this fact that I think we need to raise the discussion into a different level, Thabo, where our pronouncement is more vigorous and intense than we have done it in the past. If you're looking at the current statistics now of the population of South Africa, I think it's sitting at 63.1 million, right, in 2025. So which means if we will continue with discussing these issues, but without this discussion having a footprint on the ground, which means in a space of 60 or 70 years of a lifespan of individuals, that means this country will have to have 63.1 million graves Now, the question then arises immediately from that end to say, are we going to be able to have such if we are still considering the traditional burial practices as sustainable? Now, if we raise these conversations at a higher level, it will then trigger the engagement with the government and also trigger the engagement with the private sector as well. That will then see the change in the price for these cremators, maybe coming into a stage where maybe there could be some subsidizing, that we might see some funding that might come into place, but also it may also intensify the drive of the awareness so that the pressure towards the metros of where they have to respond to these alarming number of deaths may also be reduced. So I think if we have to take the conversation further, that will be part of what will make us to move faster than what we are moving towards addressing this issue at hand. Somehow we need to find a common convergence where the communities, the government, and the private sector can then agree that indeed there is a need. And if we don't act now, then the next generation will not have much of something to work on in terms of the dignified burial spaces that we have to take it forward to the next generation.
Yeah. Azola, what's the conversation at council around the cost limitations? Pieter raising that. I think Cyril also emphasizing that, for example, of setting up a crematorium.
Within the city of Johannesburg, we have 3 crematoria. One of them is leased out to a private consortium, and then we are operating 2. On the 2 that we are operating, our capacity is about 17 per day, but then the average cremation that takes place is about 7 or 8, 365 days per year. So in terms of capacity, we are fully capacitated. And in our crematorium, we have room to expand if need arises.
All right, so you are still okay as far as that front
yes, we are very, very capacitated in that front, yes.
The process of engaging with the new bylaws, how long is that going to take?
We're planning to close, all the sessions are closing at the end of September.
Okay.
If you go to the city's website, you will see the different dates and the different areas.
All right. Gentlemen, appreciate your time and thank you very much for coming on this afternoon. That is Cyril Mtambo, Deputy Chair of the SA Cemeteries Association, Azola Manjati, Head of the Cemeteries and Crematoria at the Johannesburg City Parks, and Westhuizen Pieter van Westhuizen, Bob General Manager.